These are the strongest and most fun builds in Dawn of the Hunt, because to satisfy everyone's itch, I'm providing the try-hard losers with the 2 best builds of the patch, followed by 1 build per class or weapon type that I've found to be not only strong, but also incredibly fun. Perfect for the peanut brain dad gamers that want to play a fun build and enjoy life. You'll find links to all the builds along with the creators in the description. And starting us off, we have the 2 strongest builds. They're of course Lightning Spear, but in different forms. First, we have the Deadeye Frenzy Charge Stacker. This has one of the best single target damage in the game, capable of hitting for more than 100 million in one combo. But what truly makes the build great is the clearing capabilities, because this build has permanent frenzy charges and a buttload of them. And what does that mean? Well, shit, it means that we're always getting the Lightning Spear damage bonus from frenzy charges and in turn additional clearing, not being forced to rely on the Vault Support gem as with all the other Lightning Spear builds. To one-tap bosses, the build utilizes Wind Serpent, and this is the main reason you want to be a ranger for this build. Because the more frenzy charges you have, the more hits you get via Wind Serpent. And the ranger has access to Avidity, allowing you to quickly get 7 frenzy charges, and Thrilling Chase, which doubles their value when using Wind Serpent. Now, to get this build is not too expensive, but getting it to deal hundreds of millions of damage will require you to whip out that credit card.
Here's the fucking money, shithead!
It's down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
Just be aware of the blue-haired demon.
Get her the fuck out, standing for real money trading trash.
Next up, we have the other top build of the patch, the Blood Mage. This build has disgusting amounts of single target damage, capable of one-tapping T4 bosses in a 6-man party easily. It does not have the same clear as the Ranger version, but due to the humongous single target, this is the build you want to use if you want to boost dogshit newbies for T4 bosses or post popular clips on Reddit. And how does this build work? Well, for mapping you just press Lightning Spear, like with any other goddamn build, but with the exception of also inflicting bleed. For single target, however, things are more interesting, and the reason you want to rock a Blood Mage is due to the Ascendancy nodes, Blood Barbs and Gore Spike. Gore Spike speaks for itself. More life equals big damn equals big dick. But the other one is more interesting. What this does is that all elemental damage you manage to gather, you in turn transform into bleed damage. And to seal the deal, we can also grab Crown of Eyes to have spell elemental damage be usable for our spear attacks as well. All we then need is to buff our bleed, elemental damage, and spell damage, and we'll gain humongous bleeds. So much, in fact, that we simply need to use our rake to inflict bleed on enemies, buff ourselves up with some clever interactions, and then consume the bleed to one-shot bosses with Blood Hunt. Alright, so that's the top 2 builds. Let's check out some wacky, fun, and strong builds that doesn't rely on Lightning Spear now. And we're starting off with my favorite build of the patch, the Shockwave Titan by J-Mac. This build absolutely dominates maps, having screen-wide clear and probably the most satisfying PC-destroying explosions. The build recently had its totems deal damage twice as fast, making it incredibly strong and fun to play. And for single target, we're instead utilizing Ancestral Warrior Totem, socketing Rolling Slam for great single target damage as well. And how do we play this bad boy? And what are the requirements? For mapping, it's simple. You press Shockwave Totem and shit explodes. Your enemies, your PC, and your baby maker having jagged ground dealing a massive chunk of your damage. For some extra mobility, you're free to use Leap or Shield Charge, but it's not mandatory, instead making the build as easy as possible to play. There are no complex rotations or interactions going on here. It's just that simple, and the build is even playable while leveling, as long as all the skills are unlocked. For bossing, the build is no Bleed Mage, but it's still strong. We talked about this earlier, but we're now using ancestral totems to deal damage via rolling slam. We simply summon our totem friends, punch the boss with armor break and mace strike to break its armor and generate rage, and watch the boss die. It's just that simple, folks. Next on the agenda, we have a monk build, but not any monk build. It's an acolyte of the Chihuahua build using Flicker Strike. Quite possibly the most fun build in the game, zip-zippity zapping through maps with incredible clear speed and huge single target damage. And how does this build work then? Well, damn, to utilize Flicker Strike, we need a bunch of power charges. To solve this, we're rocking Profane Ritual socketed into a cast on freeze. We then simply get our Herald of Thunder to deal cold damage and freeze, which will trigger cast on freeze and repeat. There's of course also room to manually cast Profane Ritual as well if you ever run out, but you may as well just use Stormwave until you've gathered enough power charges instead, as you'll then both clear enemies and stack up power charges when you're freezing. And why the hell are we using the Chihuahua? Because of the disgusting amounts of Lich, of course. This in turn means you need at least one mana Leech roll on your rings, as we can then utilize all of the yummy Leech nodes in the Ascendancy, allowing us to keep our mana and energy shield topped off at all times. You can of course run other Ascendancies, but this combination is a huge quality of life for the build, as you can get the build up and running with only a Divine. All you'd then need is the mana Leech mentioned, preferably some cold damage rolls, and some cheap-ass items that no one currently uses for other builds. The only real downside this build has is that if enemies do not die, then you're not freezing and consuming corpses, meaning Simulacrum sucks donkey balls for this build. But other than that, it's a great and fun build to play. Next up, we have yet another one of my personal favorites, the Dark Effigy Lich. I need to admit that while this build does suffer on the single target front, compared to some of the other builds in this video, it makes up for it with the most satisfying mapping experience out there. It's easy to set up, fun, and it's fucking brain dead. So how does it function then? Via Dark Effigy, of course. This skill shoots out a projectile per chaos damage over time debuff on our enemies. So what we do speaks for itself. We make sure that we have a bunch of chaos debuffs on our enemies. Contagion, Essence Drain, Poison, and more. They all count towards this debuff count, and these debuffs generally spread like herpes at a Coachella concert. You simply press Dark Effigy, Contagion, Essence Drain, and start picking your nose, and everything around you will be cleared out in no time. For bossing, the general rotation still holds, you're just getting a few additional buttons to press. But no worries, there's still room to do more important things, like checking out this next build, a spear build that is not Lightning Spear. Cool, huh? And it's the Whirling Slash Spin, To Win Ritual build. There are a few different versions of this, some focusing more on single target, which it generally lacks, and this one focusing on being a speed demon, stacking a buttload of attack speed and focusing on clear speed. In any way, let's discuss how all of these builds work. For starters, we're going to rock double or triple Whirling Slash. Generally, you'll make one of them massive and use it to buff yourself, and the other one you'll have for damage and speed. You'll then simply use the buffing one once and spam the shit out of your main damage Whirling Slash, and it will automatically make you dash all over the map. To get that attack speed as high as possible, we're of course stacking attack speed, but also dexterity, allowing us to gain additional attack speed via Hand of Wisdom and Action, and additional attack speed via accuracy rating. If you've played the attribute stacker from last patch, then you may remember a lot of these interactions. This also may remind you of how insanely expensive this build can become if you want to truly maximize it. But there are budget versions that you can rock before you get the build going. And remember, it's an excellent mapping build, which should allow you to farm efficiently. Alright, Let's move onwards and check out a crossbow build. It's the Galvanic Shards Shock Burst Rounds build, and it's absolutely crushing it. It's doing giga single target DPs, and the clear is amazing as well. Yet another long-time favorite build of mine, but it has previously been just alright. Until this patch, of course, where we can now slap all of the skills onto an Amazon rather than a Witch Hunter and have the damage absolutely skyrocket. And to understand the build is incredibly simple. For starters, you should know by now that the Amazon Ascendancy is just broken, having damage all over the place. But when it comes to the skills, we first have Galvanic Shards. This is what we're using for clearing, because with this, combined with Herald of Thunder, we get easy access to screen-wide clearing when mapping. On the other hand, this skill sucks Donkey Ball's single target. And how do we solve that? Correct. With ease using Shock Burst Rounds. This skill instead sucks Donkey Balls when clearing, but crushes it on single target, granting it great synergy with the Galvanic Shards. And what's great about this build is how accessible it is. You don't need any gear to get started with it, and it simply gets better and better the longer you progress with it. So if you enjoy lightning and the crossbow playstyle, then this will be the perfect build for you, both leveling up and enjoying the end game. Next build to showcase is a sorcerer build. Now, as you may be aware, this class got absolutely nuked in Dawn of the Hunt, receiving kick after kick down below. But fear not, because the CoC is still remaining rock solid. Cast on crit, that is, with Chain and Spark, because that's what this build is all about. We're rocking Spark, which is one of our main damage sources, and screen clearing. We then have Orb of Storms, which is going to shock and inflict lightning exposure, and we'll have Arc, which does the remaining damage and comes from our CoCs. Now, this build is somewhat difficult to play when you're bossing and dealing with more difficult content, which is mainly due to the amount of nerfs it received. But fear not, if you follow the build guide, then you'll find that you have no worries playing your old favorite Spark. Build this patch as well. For the final build of the day, we have a bull build, and it's the Ranger Deadeye Lightning Arrow build, simply because I've gotten a gazillion questions if this build is still viable this patch, and it indeed is. Capable of ripping pinnacle bosses a new one and having one of the best clear speeds in the game, especially when rocking the Rule mount. Now, this build did indeed get absolutely nuked this patch, but it's all good considering where it used to be last patch. There are, however, some mechanical changes that took place. When clearing, it's still the same old, you run and you hold down the lightning arrow button. But when doing the pinnacle bosses, we're now using lightning rod and using lightning arrow to chain and deal damage. Previously, all we had to do was use cast on shock, spawn a gazillion balls of lightning, and the boss died. But now we actually press buttons, lightning rod and lightning arrow that is, because when your lightning arrow hits something, it chains. And when it chains, your lightning rod deals damage. Funnily enough, though, that's pretty much all there is to it. You press lightning rod, lightning arrow, and repeat until everything dies. Fun, huh? Yeah, why not? And with that video complete, drop a sub, check out the creators, and I'll see you in the next one.